No more bets. They say marriage is a partnership, a journey you embark on together, hand in hand, with the dreams of building something lasting and beautiful. But for Zia and me, it often felt like we were partners in an endless grind, running parallel lives that rarely intersected. Our shared dreams hadn't disappeared. They were just buried under piles of responsibilities. The mortgage, the groceries, the school fees, and everything else that came with raising 2 kids in a world that never stopped demanding more. We both worked at the casino, me as a supervisor and Zia as a dealer. On paper, it sounded convenient, even romantic in a way, working under the same roof. But reality had other plans. Our shifts were staggered to make sure someone was always there for the kids. It meant one of us was always coming home as the other was heading out, leaving little time to talk, let alone connect. Most nights, our conversations were reduced to hurried exchanges. Did April finish her homework? Casey has a dentist appointment tomorrow. Don't forget to take the chicken out of the freezer. We did what we had to do, but there were moments, quiet, fleeting moments, when I look at her and remember the life we used to dream about. Lazy mornings in bed, family vacations, time to just be together. Those moments felt like a distant memory, pushed aside by the relentless march of bills, schedules, and responsibilities. But we kept going, because that's what you do when you're a parent. You put your head down, you work, and you hope it's enough. This morning, though, was different. The alarm clock buzzed to life at 6:30 a.m., but for once I didn't need it. I had been awake for half an hour already, lying in the dim light of dawn, staring at the ceiling. It was one of those rare mornings where the house was quiet. Not even the kids were awake yet. I could hear Zia's soft breathing beside me, a gentle reminder that today was special. Today, we both had the day off. No shifts to trade, no baton to pass. Just a full day to spend together as a family. These days were so rare, they felt almost sacred, like finding an oasis in the middle of a desert. The thought of it made my chest ache with a strange mix of happiness and longing. I turned my head to look at Zia, her hair spilling across the pillow, her face relaxed in sleep. She deserved this day more than anyone. Her job was grueling in ways mine wasn't. The endless smiles, the constant chatter, the weight of standing for hours on end. And yet, she never complained. She carried it all with quiet strength, even on the days when I knew she was running on fumes. Today, I promised myself, would be different. Today, we would slow down. We would laugh, we would talk, and for once we would remember what it felt like to just be. I slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake Zia just yet. She deserved every extra minute of rest she could get. The house was still bathed in the soft blue of early morning, and for a moment I let myself enjoy the silence. No rushing, no alarms, no hurried goodbyes at the door. Just stillness. The kitchen was my first stop. I decided to make breakfast. Something more than the usual toast and coffee we both grabbed on our way out the door. I pulled out the eggs, bacon, and the waffle mix that had been sitting in the cupboard for months. As I worked, the rhythmic sound of the whisk and the sizzle of bacon on the stove felt oddly soothing. By the time the waffles were golden and the coffee was brewed, I heard soft footsteps padding down the hall. Casey appeared first, his hair sticking up in every direction. He rubbed his eyes and gave me a sleepy grin. "Dad, what smells so good?" "Breakfast," I said, grinning back. "Go wake your sister and wash up. It's a special day." His eyes lit up, and he ran off, yelling for April as he went. Moments later, their laughter filled the house, echoing down the hall. Zia emerged not long after, Her hair still tousled from sleep, but her eyes brighter than I'd seen in weeks. She stopped in the doorway, taking in the table I'd set. Waffles stacked high, fresh fruit, bacon, and syrup. "Look at you," she said, a teasing smile playing on her lips. "Who are you? And what have you done with my husband?" I laughed, pulling her into a quick hug. "Just thought we deserved something special. It's not every day we all get to sit down together." The kids piled into their chairs, chattering excitedly, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we sat down as a family without a clock ticking in the background. Between bites of syrup-drenched waffles and the kids' endless stories about school and friends, Zia and I caught each other's eyes across the table. No words were needed in that moment. The look we shared said everything. This is what we're working for. After breakfast, we spent the day like we always said we would, playing board games, watching movies, and just being together. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen the kids laugh so much or Zia so relaxed. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the living room, we decided to wind down with one more movie. The kids picked an animated classic, and we all piled onto the couch, blankets and pillows creating a cozy little nest. Casey curled up beside me, his head resting against my arm, while April nestled into Zia's lap. For a moment, everything felt perfect. The kind of rare evening where the world outside melted away. The sound of laughter from the TV mixed with the soft rustling of blankets, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't had in weeks. But the peace didn't last. Halfway through the movie, my phone buzzed on the coffee table, its vibration cutting through the calm like a knife. I hesitated, not wanting to disrupt the moment, but Zia noticed. "Who's that?" she asked softly, her hand gently brushing April's hair. "Probably nothing," I muttered, reaching for the phone. But as I glanced at the screen, my stomach sank. A news notification flashed. Mysterious illness spreads rapidly. Authorities urge caution. I tried to brush it off, but Zia's sharp eyes caught the shift in my expression. "Stephen, what is it?" I sighed, lowering the phone. "It's the news again. They're saying there's some kind of illness spreading. Rapidly. People are getting sick, vomiting, collapsing. It's bad." Her face tensed, the relaxed softness from earlier replaced by a worried frown. "Do they know what it is? Is it like before?" "They're still figuring it out," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But it sounds serious. People are panicking, clearing out stores, staying home. They're even talking about another lockdown." The word hung in the air like a dark cloud. Another lockdown. Zia let out a shaky breath. "Stephen, we barely made it through the last one. What if it happens again? What if—" She stopped herself, glancing down at April, who was now fast asleep in her lap. I reached over, resting a hand on her arm. "Hey, don't go there yet. Let's not panic until we know more." Her voice dropped to a whisper, as though speaking louder might wake the kids or invite more bad news. "But what if it's real this time? What if this thing spreads to the casino? We're around people all day, Stephen. Dealers, customers. What if we bring it home?" I didn't have an answer. The thought had crossed my mind too. Every interaction, every handshake, every shared surface, it all felt like a potential risk now. "We'll figure it out," I said finally, though my voice lacked conviction. "We always do." She leaned back against the couch, her fingers brushing through April's hair in absent thought. "And what about the kids? How do we keep them safe if we're out there every day? How do we explain it if everything shuts down again?" Her words stirred memories I'd tried to bury. Empty shelves at the grocery store, endless weeks of uncertainty, counting every dollar just to make it through. The thought of going through it all again was suffocating. "We'll take it one day at a time," I said quietly, squeezing her hand. "That's all we can do." The movie played on, its cheerful soundtrack feeling jarringly out of place against the tension in the room. Eventually, I shifted, scooping up Casey, who had fallen asleep beside me. Zia followed, carrying April, and we tucked them into their beds, kissing their foreheads goodnight. When we finally crawled into our own bed, the weight of the conversation lingered. Zia's hand found mine in the dark. "Do you think we'll be okay?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away, staring at the faint outline of the ceiling above us. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we'll face it together, whatever happens." She squeezed my hand, her voice soft but resolute. "Together." And as silence settled over the house, I listened to the sound of her breathing, steady and reassuring, as I tried to push the worry aside. Tonight, at least, we were safe. The next morning came with a sense of unease hanging in the air. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, but it did little to brighten the heaviness that had settled over us. I woke up before the alarm, as usual, staring at the soft rays of light on the ceiling, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. Zia stirred beside me, her eyes fluttering open. "Morning," she murmured, her voice still laced with sleep. "Morning," I replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. We both lingered in bed a little longer than usual, neither of us eager to face the day. But then, the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand shattered the stillness. I reached for it, already dreading what I'd see. Another news alert. Public urged to avoid close contact. Face masks recommended. I sat up, running a hand down my face as I read through the details. The illness was spreading faster than expected. Hospitals were filling up. People were panicking. Zia propped herself up on her elbow, noticing the tension in my expression. "What now?" I handed her the phone. She read the headline, her face falling. "It's happening, isn't it? Just like before." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed from the bedside table. She reached for it, and I could already tell it wasn't good news by the way her shoulders tensed. "It's work," she said, glancing at me before answering. I listened to her end of the conversation, her responses clipped and cautious. "Okay, I understand. Yes, we'll discuss it." "All right, thank you." She hung up and let out a long sigh, dropping the phone onto the bed. "They're preparing for a possible lockdown." I nodded grimly. Figured as much. "They want a list of staff who can stay in-house at the hotel," she continued, "to keep things running for the online players, the VIPs who might be stuck there if this thing shuts everything down." Her voice trembled slightly as she added, "They need volunteers. If no one steps up, they'll start assigning people." We both sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. "I hate this," Zia finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The last thing I want is for us to be separated right now. The kids need us. We need us." "I know," I said, my voice heavy. "But we both know what this means. If neither of us volunteers, they could assign both of us to stay." She shook her head, her expression pained. I can't leave them, Stephen. They're too young. They need their mom. And they need their dad," I said, though I already knew where this was headed. She looked at me, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "If one of us has to go, it should be you." I swallowed hard, nodding slowly. Deep down, I'd known this would be the outcome. I was the supervisor, my position carried more weight, and as much as I wanted to stay, to keep my family together, I couldn't let her shoulder this alone. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll do it, Zia's hand reached for mine, her grip tight. I hate this. I hate that we have to make these choices. I know, I said, squeezing her hand. But we'll get through it. One day at a time, remember? Her lips trembled as she nodded, and for a moment we just sat there, holding on to each other like our lives depended on it. The sound of little footsteps broke the moment, and we both looked up to see Casey standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy, Daddy, are you coming to breakfast?" Zia forced a smile, wiping her eyes quickly. "Of course, sweetie, let's go make pancakes." As she stood, I stayed behind for a moment, letting the decision sink in. My mind raced with worries. About the kids, about Zia, about what would happen if this illness turned into something bigger than we could handle. But I pushed it all aside as I joined them in the kitchen, determined to make the most of the time we had left together. After breakfast, I decided to make a grocery run. Zia agreed, though worry shadowed her face. "Get essentials, non-perishables. Enough for at least a couple of weeks," she said, her eyes flicking toward the kids playing in the living room. "I will," I promised, grabbing my keys and heading out. The streets were eerily quiet as I drove to the store, but the calm evaporated as soon as I pulled into the parking lot. It was chaos. Shoppers streamed in and out, carts overflowing with whatever they could grab. Inside, it was worse. Bare shelves, crowded aisles, and frantic faces. I maneuvered through the frenzy, grabbing what I could: rice, canned goods, instant noodles, pasta, whatever was left. There was no room for preferences. It was all about survival. People pushed past me, eyes darting as if hunting for the last scraps of normalcy. By the time I checked out, I felt drained. The cashier gave me a weary nod, her exhaustion mirroring my own. When I got home, Zia was waiting at the door, her expression a mix of relief and alarm at the sight of the loaded bags. "Don't come in yet," she said, her voice firm. "Go wash up first." I set the bags down in the entryway and headed straight to the bathroom. I scrubbed my hands, lathering them until they felt raw, and rinsed my face, trying to wash away the tension of the day. When I returned, Zia had put on gloves and was already sanitizing each item with a disinfectant spray. "Stephen, this is a lot," she said, her hands moving methodically. "I know," I replied, leaning against the counter. It was madness out there, Zia. Shelves were emptying faster than I've ever seen. I didn't even have time to choose, I just grabbed what was left. "This looks like more than 2 weeks' worth," she noted, glancing at the growing pile on the counter. "It is," I admitted. "I overspent, but I figured it's better to have too much than too little. This, combined with what we already have, should get us through a month if we need it." She paused, her hands resting on a can of beans, and looked at me. "Do you think it'll come to that?" I met her gaze. "Yeah, Zia, this isn't a hoax or one of those news scares. People are panicking for a reason. Even our jobs are preparing for a lockdown." She nodded, her resolve hardening. "We need to warn everyone." We spent the next hour calling family and friends, urging them to stock up while they still could. Some were skeptical, brushing it off as paranoia, but the urgency in our voices eventually convinced most of them. After the calls, Zia turned to me, her face etched with worry. "What about Mr. and Mrs. Cortez?" she asked, referring to the elderly couple next door. They had always been kind to us, especially to our kids, treating them like their own grandchildren, and often watching over them when both Zia and I had late shifts at the casino. "You're right," I said, grabbing my coat. "I'll talk to them in person." I headed next door and rang the bell. Mrs. Cortez opened it, her warm smile quickly replaced with concern when she saw the look on my face. "Stephen, what's wrong?" "I don't want to alarm you," I began, "but things are getting serious. There's talk of a lockdown starting tonight. Zia and I just stocked up on groceries and we wanted to make sure you two had everything you need." Mrs. Cortez glanced back at her husband, who was sitting in his recliner, and then nodded. "We haven't done much shopping this week. Maybe I'll send Henry to—" "No," I interrupted gently. "It's already chaotic out there. Let me grab a few things from our pantry to get you started." She tried to protest, but I waved it off. A few minutes later, I was back with a bag of rice, canned goods, and bottled water. "Take this," I said, "and if you need anything else, call us. You've always been there for our family. It's the least we can do." Mrs. Cortez teared up, clutching my hand. "Thank you, Stephen. You and Zia are such good people." I returned home, feeling a small sense of relief. At least they'd have something to hold them over. By late afternoon, the inevitable happened. The government issued the official announcement. A nationwide lockdown would begin at midnight. The broadcast confirmed what we'd feared, and the weight of it settled heavily on our shoulders. Before we could fully process the news, my phone buzzed. It was the casino. "Stephen," my manager said, his tone brisk, "we need you to come in with your things before the lockdown begins. We're setting up staff accommodations to keep operations running for online and VIP players." I hung up and turned to Zia. "They need me to stay in-house," I said quietly. Her face fell, but she nodded, her strength shining through the fear. I figured they'd call. We sat together in our room, going over the details. I packed a small suitcase with clothes, toiletries, and a few personal items, while Zia made notes on how she'd manage the household. "I hate this," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I do too," I said, pulling her close, "but we'll get through it, one day at a time." When everything was packed, I sat with my daughter, holding her small hands in mine. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "Daddy has to go away for a little while for work. While I'm gone, you have to listen to Mommy, okay? Always follow what she says." She nodded, her wide eyes shining with worry. I turned to Casey, who stood nearby, trying to act brave. "Casey, it's up to you to help Mommy around the house. Make sure the doors are locked at all times, okay? You're the man of the house while I'm gone." "I will, Dad," he said firmly, though I could see the fear he was trying to hide. Finally, I faced Zia. I cupped her face in my hands, memorizing every detail. "Stay strong," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'll call you every single day, and I need you to update me every time, no matter how small it seems, okay?" She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "We'll be fine, Stephen. Don't worry about us. Just be safe, and come home as soon as you can." I pulled her into a tight hug, treasuring the warmth of her embrace. "I will," I promised, my voice barely a whisper. As midnight approached, I kissed my children goodnight, held Zia one last time, and walked out the door, my heart heavy but resolute. Whatever the days ahead held, I would do everything I could to keep my family safe and come back to them. As I stepped out of the house, the night air felt heavy, almost suffocating. I took one last look at the warm glow of the living room light spilling out through the curtains. Zia stood by the window, holding Casey and my daughter close. She raised a hand in a silent goodbye, her expression a mixture of strength and sadness. I headed next door, my suitcase rolling behind me, and knocked on the Cortez's door. Mr. Cortez opened it this time, his usual cheerful face shadowed with concern. "Stephen, everything all right?" "I wanted to let you know," I began, glancing back at my house, "that I have to leave tonight for work. The casino is making certain staff stay on site during the lockdown. I just wanted to check in before I go." Mrs. Cortez appeared behind her husband, clutching his arm. "Stephen, that sounds dangerous. Are they taking care of you?" They've set up accommodations at the hotel, I assured her. I'll be safe, but it means I won't be around for a while. Zia and the kids will be on their own. We'll keep an eye out, Mr. Cortez said firmly, gripping my shoulder. You don't have to worry about them. If they need anything, they'll know where to come. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with gratitude. You two mean so much to us. Mrs. Cortez reached out and patted my hand. Take care of yourself, Stephen, and come back as soon as you can. I nodded, swallowing hard before heading to the car. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror one last time, the Cortez's porch light casting a comforting glow on the darkened street. The drive to the casino was surreal. The streets were nearly empty, save for the occasional car rushing home to beat the midnight lockdown. The radio buzzed with updates, the announcers' voices strained but steady as they discussed the measures being taken to contain the situation. When I arrived at the casino, the parking lot was nearly deserted, a stark contrast to its usual bustle. Security waved me through, and I parked near the staff entrance. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but orderly, staff moving about with purpose. "Stephen!" a familiar voice called out. Aaron, one of the younger dealers, jogged up to me. He was carrying a duffel bag and looked a little frazzled but relieved to see me. "Man, I was hoping you'd show up. It feels like we're in a disaster movie or something." "Feels like that, doesn't it?" I said, giving him a pat on the shoulder. "Let's get settled in." We were assigned a room in the hotel attached to the casino, a modest but comfortable space with 2 twin beds and a small desk. I set my suitcase down and took a deep breath, letting the quiet of the room wash over me for a moment. Aaron flopped onto his bed, his duffel bag still slung over one shoulder. "This is nuts," he said, staring at the ceiling. "I mean, 1 minute we're dealing cards and smiling at VIPs, and the next we're locked in a hotel." "It's crazy, all right," I replied, sitting on the edge of my bed. "But we'll get through it. The important thing is to stay focused and not let panic get the better of us." Aaron turned his head to look at me. "You've got kids, right? Zia and kids?" "Yeah," I said, my voice softening. "Zia and I have 2 kids, Casey and my little girl. Leaving them tonight was the hardest thing I've ever done." Aaron nodded, his usual cocky demeanor replaced with something more earnest. "I can't imagine what that's like. I mean, I don't have anyone back home, just me and my cat. But still, this whole thing, it's scary." "It is," I admitted. "But you've got to hold on to something. For me, it's knowing that my family is safe and that I'll see them again soon." Aaron sat up, resting his elbows on his knees. "What do you think this is, Stephen? The news is all over the place. Some are saying it's a virus. Others are talking about riots, even martial law." "I don't know," I said honestly. "But whatever it is, it's serious. We've just got to do what we can to stay safe and keep things running here. The less chaos, the better." He nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "You're right. I guess I'm just glad I'm rooming with you. You always seem to have your head on straight." I chuckled, though there wasn't much humor in it. "Don't give me too much credit. I'm just doing what I can, like everyone else." As the night wore on, we unpacked and settled into a strange, new routine. Despite the uncertainty hanging in the air, there was a quiet camaraderie between us, a shared understanding that we were all in this together, trying to make sense of a world that had suddenly turned upside down. It was already past midnight when I called Zia. The silence of the hotel room was only broken by the faint hum of the air conditioning as I listened to the phone ring. On the 3rd ring, she answered, her voice soft but alert. "Stephen?" "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I figured you'd still be up." "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. Not with everything going on. How are you? Did you settle in?" "Yeah," I replied, leaning back against the headboard. "Room's decent enough. Aaron, one of the dealers, is with me. The staff seems organized at least." "That's good," she said, her tone relieved. "The kids are asleep, but it was hard getting them to bed. Casey kept asking when you'd be back." A pang of guilt hit me. "I'm sorry, Zia, "Stop," she interrupted gently. "Don't apologize. You're doing what you have to. We'll be fine, Stephen. I'll make sure of it." We stayed on the phone for another hour, just talking. About the kids, the neighbors, anything to keep the fear at bay. Before hanging up, I reminded her again to call me every day. "I will," she promised. "You just take care of yourself, okay? And come home to us." "I will," I said, though the words felt hollow. The next morning, Aaron and I were woken by a knock at the door. I groggily got up and opened it to find a member of housekeeping standing there, a cart beside her piled with small boxes. "Good morning," she said briskly, handing me 2 face masks and a small bottle of alcohol. "These are for you and your roommate. Please wear the masks at all times outside your room and use the alcohol regularly." "Thanks," I muttered, taking the items. Aaron groaned from his bed, rubbing his eyes. "What's going on?" "Welcome to lockdown life," I said, tossing a mask onto his bed. Later, we made our way to the staff canteen for breakfast. The mood was subdued. Conversations hushed as everyone tried to make sense of the new reality. As we ate, I noticed several unfamiliar faces, men and women in suits, mingling with what I recognized as the casino's top executives. Aaron leaned over, his voice low. "Man, are the big bosses seriously spending the lockdown in-house? I thought they'd be staying with their families." I glanced at the group, noting how comfortable they looked, chatting and laughing as though they were at a casual business brunch. Apparently, they're in-house with their families, more of a vacation than a lockdown. Aaron stared at me, incredulous. "What?" I smirked wryly. "And we small potatoes have to leave our families behind to keep things running." He shook his head, laughing bitterly. "Of course. Figures." After breakfast, we headed to the briefing room, where the staff had been called together. The manager, a stocky man with a permanent scowl, stood at the front of the room, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice carrying over the quiet murmurs. "As you all know, the government has announced a nationwide lockdown. It's projected to last 2 weeks, though that could change depending on the situation." He paused, scanning the room. "We at the casino are extremely grateful for the sacrifices you've made in choosing to stay in-house. To show our appreciation, there will be additional incentives provided to everyone here. Details will be shared later." There was a smattering of polite applause, though the room still felt heavy with unease. As the day progressed, Aaron and I started our shifts, deciding to take a quick look around the casino before heading to our station. The eerie silence was jarring. The once lively casino floor, usually buzzing with excitement, felt lifeless. Most gaming tables were deserted, the lights on the slot machines blinking in vain, and the usual chatter replaced with an uneasy stillness. Only the VIP area remained open, its exclusivity offering a strange semblance of normalcy amidst the growing chaos. A handful of VIPs lingered, either stranded by circumstance or choosing to ride out the lockdown in luxury. Some sipped cocktails in the lounge, others casually watched the news on the large flat screens, their nonchalance baffling. Aaron gestured toward the VIP lounge. "Man, they're still here? You'd think people would want to be with their families right now." I shrugged. "Some people have different priorities, comfort and convenience over everything else." He scoffed, his tone sharp. "Priorities, huh? I guess money really does make the world go round, even when it's falling apart." I didn't respond, but his words lingered in the air as we made our way to our station. The pit area had been set up for a skeleton crew, with just 4 staff assigned. I was supervising 3 blackjack tables, manned by Aaron and 2 other dealers, Sarah and Liz. As we prepped our tables, Sarah and Liz exchanged their thoughts on the lockdown. "I'm telling you," Liz said confidently, adjusting her uniform. "It's just going to be 2 weeks. The government's totally overreacting because of what happened last time." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Exactly. They're just trying to play it safe. We'll all be back to normal in no time." I leaned against the pit counter, eyeing them both. I wouldn't count on it. Something about this feels off. Better to stay cautious than to get caught off guard. Liz hesitated, her cheerful demeanor faltering for a moment before she shrugged. "Guess we'll see." The hours dragged on with barely any action at our pit. The dealers stood idly, shuffling cards and adjusting chips to pass the time. No players approached, and the monotony of the shift started to take its toll. Aaron leaned back against his table, groaning. "So much for us staying in-house for this. The VIPs are probably just lying in their beds, living it up while we're stuck here waiting for nothing." I smirked faintly, but didn't let my guard down. "I hope this continues for the next few days. Less work for us. But Aaron, wear your mask." He pulled it down below his chin and shot me a playful look. "Come on, there's no one here." I gave him a stern glare. "At all times outside the room, Aaron. Not just because I'm your supervisor, but because we're roommates. I don't want you getting sick and passing it to me." He laughed, but reluctantly pulled the mask back up. Fine, Dad." A few hours before the end of our shift, things finally picked up. 2 VIPs wandered into our pit area, one choosing Aaron's table and the other taking a seat at Sarah's. Due to health protocols, only 1 player was allowed per table unless they were part of the same group. I kept a close watch as the games began, ensuring the rules were followed. The soft shuffle of cards and occasional clink of chips broke the silence, but the tension was palpable. The luxury of the VIP section seemed almost surreal against the backdrop of what was happening outside. Standing at my station, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in my gut. The world was changing, and though we were trapped in this gilded bubble, I knew it wouldn't protect us for long. As the shift dragged on, the quiet hum of the VIP area was broken by the arrival of 2 more high-rolling guests, both already several drinks in. They stumbled toward Sarah's table, grinning as they fished out their chips. I stepped in before they could sit. "Gentlemen, due to health protocols, we can only allow 1 player per table unless you're from the same household. If you'd like, Liz's table is open." The bulkier of the 2, dressed in a designer suit, rolled his eyes. "Come on, man, we're VIPs. We play where we want." His friend smirked, swaying slightly. "You think we're sick or something?" I clenched my jaw, debating how hard to push this. The last thing management wanted was a scene, especially with high rollers. Just then, I caught my manager walking by. I shot him a questioning look, expecting some backup. He barely hesitated before giving me a slight nod, silent approval to let it slide. I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around the dealer's podium. "So much for health protocols, huh?" I muttered under my breath. I wasn't happy about it, but I stepped aside, letting them play. Not long after, Sarah subtly waved me over. There was tension in her expression as she flicked her gaze toward one of the VIPs. At first, I didn't get it, but then I saw it. The guy was constantly wiping his nose with the back of his hand, and every few minutes he suppressed a small cough. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I stepped away from the pit and found my manager. Keeping my voice low, I said, "One of the guests is showing symptoms." The manager sighed, rubbing his temple. Where? I gestured toward Sarah's table. Without much urgency, he walked over and grabbed a box of tissues and a face mask. He placed them in front of the guy with the most forced customer service smile I'd ever seen. "Sir, here. We ask all our guests to follow health precautions." The VIP's face twisted in irritation. "You think I got something?" he snapped, his voice hoarse. His friend, still in high spirits, nudged him. "Relax, man. We're on a roll here. Just put the damn mask on and keep playing." Still grumbling, the guy ripped open the mask and put it on, barely covering his nose. Not exactly reassuring, but at least it was something. The night continued, and something strange happened. The VIP's luck skyrocketed. Blackjack after blackjack. Picture cards after picture cards. Their stacks of chips grew at an alarming rate. Even the other dealers started exchanging looks. Aaron leaned toward me, muttering, "Man, at this rate, they're gonna break the bank. You think they rigged the decks?" I shook my head, watching the cards. "No, but I've never seen luck like this. Feels off." The sick VIP let out a loud laugh, until his laugh turned into a violent coughing fit. He doubled over, mumbling something about the restroom before stumbling off. I watched him go, that unease growing in my gut. A few minutes later, he returned, looking worse. His expensive shirt had fresh vomit stains down the front. His friend barely looked up. "You good?" The guy wiped his mouth, his movement sluggish. Yeah, just had a little too much to drink." That should have been the end of it. Drunken VIPs throwing up wasn't exactly news. It happened all the time. But as I watched him sit back down, a deep, uneasy feeling settled in my chest. Something wasn't right. The end of our shift couldn't come soon enough. As Aaron and I walked back to our hotel room, the exhaustion of the day weighed on us. The eerie quiet of the halls only added to the unsettling feeling I couldn't shake. Aaron stretched his arms above his head and let out a long sigh. "Man, what a day." I nodded, rubbing the back of my neck. "Yeah, hell of a first day in lockdown." He glanced at me, then smirked. "Don't get mad or anything, but I know you miss your family." "Me? I'm single, man. I could spend months like this, no problem. Working, free food, no commute, and a comfy room feels like a dream." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Yeah, I get you," I smirked. "All right, I gotta call Zia." Aaron waved me off as I pulled out my phone and stepped onto the balcony for some privacy. The moment I heard Zia's voice, I felt like I could breathe again. The next couple of days passed in an uneasy routine. Then Sarah started showing symptoms. At first, it was subtle, just a sore throat and some fatigue. She brushed it off, saying it was probably just the dry air from the casino. But by the second day, she was coughing more, looking paler, and taking more breaks between hands. I didn't have to say it out loud. Everyone knew where she got it from. The sick VIP and his friends stopped showing up altogether. No one mentioned it, but we all noticed their absence. Then Liz got sick too. She shared a room with Sarah anyway, so it wasn't exactly a surprise. Aaron and I kept our distance, but I pulled him aside when we had a moment. "Listen, man," I said quietly. "Be extra cautious. Sarah and Liz are both showing symptoms now." His expression darkened. "Shut. You think—" I nodded. "At this rate, it's spreading, Aaron." And it did. Within few days, nearly half the casino staff was showing symptoms. Some mild, some worse. The guests, too. Some of them started disappearing into their rooms, not coming down to play anymore. Management finally made the call. All 6 staff and guests were told to stay in their rooms. No more shifts, no more casino access. Just full-on quarantine. The ones still healthy were given strict instructions to limit interactions, wear masks at all times, and avoid unnecessary contact. It was too late, though. I could feel it in my gut. This wasn't just a normal lockdown anymore. This was something else entirely. Let me know in the comments below if you want to hear more from this story. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.